And I'm going to introduce our presenter, Chris. So let me share my screen here.
Oh, wow.
All right, so this is Chris. And Chris is a former collegiate softball coach and softball player for 40 years. Chris has been a financial advisor with Edward Jones since 2012. And they hold a Bachelor of Science from Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville and a Master of Science from Eastern Kentucky University. And Chris has a 17-year-old son, and as a family, they love sports, hiking, and as Chris mentioned earlier, playing golf.
Yes.
And each Thanksgiving, Chris's family runs a food drive to feed homeless families in the Parkway School District, which I assume is your son's school district. So we are so happy to have Chris share this information today on outsmarting the scammers. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Are you going to let me? Do you need to let me share my screen?
You should have permission to go for it.
Yes, I do. Hi, everybody. Again, I am Chris Caldwell. I have been with Edward Jones for 9 years. My office is in the Valley, Chesterfield Valley. My wife and I have been married for 21 years. When we have a 17-year-old son who is the only person that's ever had to come out of straight. The poor boy was so upset too. I was like, oh, I just care about who loves you. So one of the reasons why I became a financial advisor is because of the education piece. And this is very dear to my heart. Outsmart the scammers. As we all know, the scammers are out there. And why am I not able to move it? There it goes. They are out there, and the number that frightens me is if you look down at the bottom that 90% of the abusers are somebody that you trust. That's the number that really upsets me. 90% is somebody that you trust. And so unfortunately, that means somebody in your family or grandchildren or nieces and nephews or somebody will try to scam you for your money, and those are hard to see and hard to overcome. I think you might remember Mickey Rooney. He actually testified in front of the Congress because his grandchildren were trying to scam him out of his money. Unfortunately, that breaks your heart more than anything. Um, but 14, listen to this, in 2019, 14.4 million Americans had their identity stolen in 2018. And one of the reasons or ways that they do that is by getting your taxes, getting your tax returns. Several of my clients filed their taxes only to be informed that their taxes had already been filed. So the ones that's a big number right there. So that happened. It makes me so sad. Um, the $2.9 billion. Do you guys see that number? That's how much was lost last year in scams. $2.9 billion. 1 in 10 elderly people are victims of scams. And I don't like that number at all. And only 1 in 14 is reported. So those are numbers that I wanted to make you guys aware of, because especially that 90%, because there's things that we know or we call red flags. So I'm going to go over today the 5 common fraud scenarios, what red flags you might see. For example, the IRS is never going to call you. Social Security is never going to call you. Resources that you have out there, what additional steps you might use for protection, and then, of course, the friend or fraud um, the which is that 90% number that we were talking about. So actually, right before I jumped on this call, I had a call with a prospect down in Florida, and they just received a call claiming to be collections. And luckily, she was well aware that she didn't have anything in collections. But then this person started threatening to call the police and have the police there in 20 minutes. So that scared her. And she's a single woman. She lives by herself. So she went and got her neighbor, which very smart to do. She was afraid. And then the neighbor called the police, and the police were told her that it was a scam. But that just happened yesterday. Another one is a woman that actually is an Edward Jones client, and she received a call that she owed money, but she knew it was a mistake. But the caller said he would accept payment over the phone or a credit card, and she could provide her checking account information. So there's your big red flag. Never provide your checking account information. So the person claimed to be from the IRS. Again, the IRS never calls. So there's your second big red flag. So she asked the person on the phone to give a phone number for her to call him back. And he, of course, wouldn't give the number. So that's a big way to counteract somebody that's calling a fraud. Give me the phone number that I can call you back. Because if they're for real, they're going to give you a phone number and they're going to be fine with that. You guys, since we're such an intimate crowd here, why don't, if you have any questions, just interrupt me. And I mean, I have 30 minutes and I'm sure I'll cover most everything. But yeah, since we're such an intimate crowd here, you guys can just, um, so that story, the scammer could have collected all of her wealth information, including her social security number, and she would have lost everything. So never give out your checking account information.
Charles, did you have a question?
Yeah, Chris, I was going to mention that I had heard that to be extra careful, to not, if they give you a phone number to call back, it could be one, if they're doing a big enough scam, it could be one where they, have somebody ready to answer calls and appear to be legitimate. So don't trust them, and, on your own, look up the phone number for the IRS, or that sort of thing.
Charles, because my next point is don't trust
Good.
your caller ID.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, absolutely.
They can make it to where it looks like the IRS is calling you.
Yeah. Or it could look like it's a very local call, and it could be totally, yeah.
Right. So yeah, that is the other one, and it said in my next point after that, Charles. So you were a great segue for me. I appreciate that.
Sorry, I jumped ahead.
No, you're fine. No, I want participation for sure.
Yeah. Well,
So
Chris, I also have a question before you get too deep in. So you mentioned on the first slide that only 1 in 14 instances of fraud or scams are reported. I was just curious why you think that is. Is it because of shame and not wanting to admit that it happened? Or do you think there are cases where people don't even realize that it happened and they find out like months later or something like that?
a lot of it has to do with the family aspect of it. They don't want to get their relative in trouble. So if it's their grandson, they don't want to get their grandson in trouble. Or if it's a niece or nephew, they don't, but that's mainly one of the reasons why, and shame of being scammed, because nobody wants to admit that they gave up their information. But people are very convincing. They're very, very, very good at what they do. They are very good at what they do. So any other questions? You want me to keep going? So back to that, yeah, don't trust your caller ID because they can set it up to where your caller ID is saying it's from the IRS. If they claim they're from the utility company and that you have a collection, they can also set up their caller ID, or they can have, like Charles said, somebody waiting for the phone number. But it's very important that you do your own investigation, and it's trust your gut. If you know that you don't have anything collection out there, hang up the phone. Somebody, Charlotte, did you have a question?
Oh, it wasn't a question. I was just going to say I got a call yesterday. Now, I usually use my cell phone and I don't get many of those calls on there, but on my landline, I get probably 6 or 7 calls a day that just say unavailable and I never answer. But yesterday I got one and I was just happened to be standing by the phone. So I thought I'll answer it. And it's this person saying, this is your credit card company, and we're going to be deducting $299 from your account. And so I just hung up. I mean, they didn't even say what company it was or anything. They just, this is your credit card company. That was kind of a new one that I'd never heard before, but I just hung up.
Well, that was the right thing to do, for sure. So one of the things that, when we just talked about the scare tactic that somebody's going to be coming to your house to arrest you or collect or anything, chances are that scammer doesn't live anywhere near you. But if you need to, call the police, go to a trusted friend, report. They really want you to report the incident to the Attorney General's office. It's hard to find these people, but the more reports that they get, they can help pinpoint. Contact the Federal Trade Commission or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as a resource. So I'll go over those again. To report an incident to your Attorney General, you can contact the Federal Trade Commission or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So that's a long one on that last one. Above all, remain calm, like Charlotte did. Just remain calm and hang up. So does anybody have grandchildren? Charles does. So there's some people that are trying to call and portray your grandchildren. There are people that call and say that I have your grandchild in jail, and if you don't pay the what's it called when you have to, if you don't pay the bail, they're going to sit in jail. And that's where grandparents get in trouble, because they don't know that where Bobby is, right? And how often do you, Charles, how often do you talk to your grandchildren?
About once a week on Saturdays by Zoom, but normally not that often. And also, little disclosure: the oldest of the 4 is 9 years old. So.
Oh, okay. So.
Although if he ended up in jail, that might be, depending on the day, it could be well deserved. So. Just kidding.
Yeah, I don't have grandchildren yet, but I'm one. Oh my gosh. So the big one is that Bobby would be in jail, and that Bobby wants you to pay the bail. But here's the thing: they won't let you talk to Bobby. So if you don't have, if and I'm sorry if you hear the trash truck, I apologize. Or they call and act as if they're Bobby. And the biggest thing is that if Bobby has a Facebook account or whatever, TikTok or whatever they have going on these days, there's information on there that they can call and actually say information that Bobby knows. So if Bobby goes to school out of state, if Bobby has certain kind of car that he loves, because they post that on Facebook or on TikTok. I'm not really familiar with what the But or the other one is if Bobby's in Mexico and can't leave the country without money. So there's the three. Somebody's calling to pretend like they're Bobby. Somebody's calling and saying that their Bobby's in jail, or Bobby's in Mexico and can't get out. And sometimes, unfortunately, that is Bobby, and that's part of the problem. Is that the grandparent doesn't want Bobby to get in trouble. That they'll wire the money, but when they wire the money, the person that has the wiring information can then go back and get more money out of your account.
Mm.
So that's really the big one, is the grandparent scam. Oh, I should have covered that one. Now this one is really sad to me, because they're playing on somebody's loneliness, their lonely heart, and somebody just wants to talk to somebody, but you never can see them, you never can meet them, you're always online. Sometimes it's even now what is it called, phishing, where you have a phone conversation with this person, but you never have a Zoom call, so you never know what they look like. Then they come up with a hard luck story. There's always something that is wrong, or they need help with, or their car is down, they can't get to their job. There's a hard luck story that's always involved, and then they're going to try to get you to send their money. And sometimes it's once and they're gone. Sometimes they go for as much as they can, which is really, which is really sad. One of the stories from one of our Ever Jones clients, a woman befriended the man by telling her hard luck story. She claimed that she needed money for her cancer treatment. So he gave her money. But then he signed over a power of an attorney. And she obtained a home equity loan under his name and stole a bunch of his money. As far as a financial advisor, I would advise you to never give trade authority to anybody. Trade authority gives that person the authority to place trades in your account, to place withdrawals out of your account without you knowing. So if you gave somebody trade authority, I don't have to call you. By law, I can't call you and say, Charlotte, such and such just placed a trade, because you've given them trade authority. Power of attorney. I have powers of attorney, but they're only when you have become incapacitated, meaning you are unconscious and unable to speak to me. Or if I have spoken to you over the phone and you have, because I've had a client, her son overdosed in his bedroom, and I was in her house, and she got up in the middle of the conversation, went into that bedroom, and started screaming like she's seen it again. So that person, I would call your trusted contact and say that there's something wrong, but just don't give power of attorney to anybody. And unfortunately, especially your own family. I have seen many things happen with family members trying to take over accounts when their parents or grandparents were still very functionable, but they were trying to take over an account. Any questions on the romantic scam?
I would
Well,
just say,
Sorry, Michael, say again.
yeah, I was just going to say that I've seen instances of specifically celebrities or people with following that are on Instagram, and someone fakes their account, and then the fake account engages with people and asks for money, and the real person then gets contacted and then ends up asking the followers to report this fake account and get it shut down, and saying I would never ask for money. So I think my point on that is if you are on whatever social media and you see a fake account that is fake, report it to get that scammer taken down.
Yes, please report it.
I'm also thinking about, so we know that LGBT older adults face more social isolation
Right.
than cisgender and heterosexual older adults. So just thinking about, I'm thinking about my dad in this, and what if he got a phone call from a past lover? So I'm thinking of a specific situation where one of his former partners, like love of his life, left to go back home to California, basically to die. He was living with HIV. It had advanced to AIDS, and so for all he knows, he left. This person died. But I just am imagining, what if he got a phone call that said, "Hey, I pulled through. I'm here. I need some help." I mean, I don't think that my dad would fall for that, but thinking about the psychological effect of, you thought someone was gone from your life forever, suddenly they reappear, you're
Mhm.
isolated, we're in COVID. Like, I could imagine the emotion of that scenario just sort of overcoming you. So I'm really glad that you talked about that particular kind of scam, because that's such a specific thing that I wouldn't have thought of that before. But hearing you talk about that, and how maybe LGBT older adults specifically could maybe in
Right.
certain scenarios be more susceptible.
LGBT community is the highest on the romance, especially our older adults. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does. And again, people put things on Facebook. I mean, I have on there who I'm married to, right? I have pictures of her all over the place. If something were to happen to her, I'm sure I would, post something like that. That's our community. That's where we share things. That's how we communicate to people that aren't as close to us, right? Um,
Speaking of Facebook, and before we started, we were talking about vaccination and COVID and the like, um, and scams. Uh, the FBI recommends that you do not, if you've gotten your COVID shot, do not show your COVID card
and
on
they
social
are,
media
they are.
because it has your name, full name, and also your birth date on it. And actually, one of the nieces on my late partner's um, side, I just normally I don't go to Facebook. I just happened to be there, and it was her and her mom with their COVID, card, and I could zoom in and read their date and everything else there. So right away, I got in contact with her and let her know,
Hey,
you
Joe.
might want to take that down. And then I sent her a link to this article that talked about the FBI warning. That's the first thing. Second of all, is that in regards to being taken advantage of because you're older with prime timers, we have had a former member who was taken advantage of by a much younger partner and the like. And that's something that I've always been kind of cautious about, not trying to tell somebody how to run their life or anything else. But and people that are your same age can also take advantage of you, but it's just something to be aware of. So
Yep, Charles has done it again. So if a friend has requested money, Charles, here, like I'll give you my notes. If a friend has requested money to a third party, so if they're asking to borrow money from you to go to a third party, that's where you might try to, like Charles said, and help them out and understand that that's most likely a scam. And they will ask you for your copy of your driver's license or your social security number. please never give those out. And tell everybody that you know. Do not give out. And please contact a governmental, your local law enforcement, because it's I know it's somebody, you know, especially if it's somebody that you love. I know and understand that you don't want to get them in trouble, but it's the only way it will stop. So how many of you have heard the lottery sweepstake, that scam? So basically you get a phone call saying you've won the lottery, or you'll get an email. You've won a lottery and you need to pay $2,000 to for the taxes and fees and everything. And as soon as you pay the $2,000, they'll release the funds. That's not a lottery. That's a scam. One of my older clients actually got that phone call last year. And if it wasn't for my assistant, because she called and said she received an email and she was having a hard time sending the money, my assistant went to her house immediately. So my assistant won an award from Edward Jones because he stopped the scam right there, but he went to her house immediately, and she was like one or two numbers away from giving away her checking account number. But in her mind, she won millions of dollars and she was happy. But my assistant, I was so proud of him, stopped that immediately. They'll identify themselves as the publisher clearinghouse. Well, we all see that on TV. We who's ever won that, really? Do we know anybody? But they'll claim that they're with the publishing house. So again, Publishers Clearinghouse won't call you. They won't email you. Let's see here. The red flags. The big red flag is that the contact is unsolicited. So you haven't gone out and bought a lottery ticket. The unsolicited contact is usually from somebody out of state, not close to you. And they're coaching you not to tell anybody about your winnings. That's a big red flag, because you'll lose your winnings if you tell people about it. And then you're paying the $2,000 for the taxes and fees. They have an anti-money laundering stamp, which why would they need to have that? Right? So again, what I always tell people, really get in touch with your instincts. If it doesn't feel right, it isn't. And there's nothing wrong with you having to check with other people to figure it out, but definitely do not. And the next slide too is a Social Security scam, which is the same thing. Social Security is not going to call you. If you owe back taxes, you probably are going to know that. If you don't owe back taxes and somebody's calling you to tell you that you do, that is a scam. So, I mean, I can give you 3,200 people reported Social Security scams last year with $210,000 lost. More than 35,000 people reported that scam and lost $10 million. So Social Security is not going to call you. They're the ones that are also going to try to get you to buy a gift card, to put it on a car. Charles was coming. He was going to tell me about that. And to take a picture of it front and back. So why would Social Security have you buy a gift card? Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes, the biggest thing is they try to intimidate you. They try to scare you. I have a dry mouth this morning.
Speaking of gift, are you going to talk more about gift cards or not?
Go ahead, Charles.
Okay. So there's a cycling group that I belong to. This lady who is like in her mid 90s that could ride further than I could ever ride on a bike. I got a email from her, and it was extremely convincing. It sounded like her. Billy Chanu, who's actually, yeah, a really neat person. Um, she said that she was out of town. A relative of hers had a birthday coming up. She wanted to send her a gift card, an app. In this case, it was an Apple gift card. She wasn't able to get one. She wanted to know if I could, you know, buy one and then just, you know, send it to her in that. But the main thing is that the the way that the email was written and everything else was extremely convincing. But like you said, trust your gut. So I just responded to the email. Normally, I would just ignore that. But knowing Billy, it could have been the case. Yeah. So I responded back to her and asked her a question about something that only she would know about. And the person never got back with me. So, and then it was about a year later, a similar email came from somebody else that I knew asking about gift cards. Yeah. So bottom line, you'll probably say this: never send a gift card, buy a gift card and send it to them
Right.
unsolicited from anyone under any circumstances.
Thank you, Charles. So the red flags for the Social Security is Social Security Administration will never call you. If there is a problem, they will send you a letter. Plus, your Social Security Administration already knows your Social Security number, so they're never going to ask you for that. And you will never have to pay for anything legitimate with a gift card. Gift cards are for gifts only. So what you should do what Charlotte did. You should hang up the phone. If a message was left, do not call the number back. You can look up the real phone number for the Social Security Administration, but again, the Social Security will not call you. If you provided your Social Security number and you think it's been accessed illegally, contact your Social Security Administration so they can place an alert on your number. Okay? Other red flags. So identity verification, immediacy, like Charles was just talking about, how they need to have that card. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And then, of course, the vow of secrecy, because you know they're playing on your fears that people are going to find out. And if vow of secrecy, especially for winning millions of dollars, they're counting on you, or people are going to tell people, I just won $5 million. Well, the vow of secrecy is so you can't win a lottery if you've never entered it, right? If they want you to wire money to a third party, that's not your friend talking. Anybody that tries to get your Social Security number, nobody really should ask for that. If a contact begs you not to tell anybody, especially a family or friend, be very wary. Okay? So, how to protect yourself. So, never provide personal information over the phone through the US mail or email. Or, like Charles says, don't post a picture on Facebook. That's your birth date. Even though people put their birthdays on Facebook, Charles, it's still, you have all of your information there. Shred your financial and personal documents. Don't just throw them away in the trash. People do go dig in the trash. Don't carry your Social Security card or write it on a check. Don't write your Social Security number on a check. Provide it only if it's absolutely necessary, or ask to use another identifier.
Could I jump in just real quick? I know that in the past for payments by check for income tax, I believe, I don't know whether it's state or whatever, they asked to put your social security number on the check. And so what I did is I just gave them the last 4 digits. And before that, I put XXX, XX, and then the last 4 digits. And if they didn't like that, too bad, So,
That's right.
yeah.
So how to be cautious online. Keep your computer security and antivirus software up to date. Do not click on pop-up ads. My mother is notorious for that. Do not hit links in unsolicited emails. Don't use an obvious password such as your birth date, your mother's maiden name, or the last 4 digits of your social security number. Protect your credit information. Inspect your credit report. If it's easy to get a hold of them these days, the law requires that the major nationwide consumer reporting companies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, they have to give you a free copy every year. You can place a fraud alert on your credit reports. I know on credit cards now, you can go in and on the app and hit stolen or fraud, or, there's all kinds of things that you can do. Close any accounts that has been compromised. Close them, get rid of them. Follow up in writing with copy of supporting documents to your banks, to your credit cards, to all. If you've been compromised with fraud, file a report with your law enforcement official, because your creditors will want that as well. So say you're claiming fraud on your credit card, they'll want a law enforcement police copy of a police report. So here's a lot of resources for you to look into. Every Edward Jones office, I have a special fraud team with my clients. So the lady that was almost going to give her checking account number, we were able to process that fraud with her through the Edward Jones fraud investigation. So there's my shameless plug. Your financial institution, use your law enforcement agency, Internet Crime Complaint Center. The Better Business Bureau has always been a great resource. Again, your state attorney general's office and the Federal Trade Commission. So I believe that's all of my, friend or fraud. So now they're just going to have you pick out, which I'm sure you guys are already going to know. If I would read you a story and you would tell me if it's friend or fraud or, so we don't need to go through those. So are there any questions other than the ones you guys were asking?
I don't have a question. I would just point out that one of the frauds that I see a lot recently is FedEx or UPS.
Yes.
Delivery emails where they say your deliveries, da 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 da. We need you to log in them. And I will admit, there's a lot of times where I'm just like, oh my God, what's coming? Do I know what's coming?
You'll get a message.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know this, if you're looking at your emails, on a laptop or your desktop, if you hover your mouse over where the link is, it will show you where it's going to take you. And usually you can tell, well, that's a fake link because it's not FedEx.com, it's blah, 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 something. But, that's another example. Chances are those are fake, and just presume they're fake unless you find out otherwise. But I think that's because of the pandemic and we're all ordering so much stuff online that
Yeah, I was going say that too about hovering over that, because I get twice I've gotten a thing from Amazon, and it looks like a bill, and it says that I ordered some computer that costs like $2,900, and it's being sent to somebody in New York. And then it says, if this you didn't order this, call this number. Well, I'm sure if you call the number, then they do something. And my daughter said, I told my daughter, and she said, oh no, that's not real. And she told me about that hovering over the the return address, you know, where it came from, and it was some long funny numbers and stuff. It wasn't real.
Yeah,
But I've
that's,
got those kind of things twice, those emails.
I get a text messages a lot.
Yeah, and I'm not going to belabor the things to look for because Chris did an amazing job of sharing the things to look for when someone is contacting you via email or over the phone. But the Senior Medicare Patrol, which is an agency that tracks issues related to Medicare and Medicare fraud, also related to the pandemic, is a rise in fraud around accessing the vaccine. So a rise in people contacting folks saying, oh, well, I need your social security number in order to register you to receive the vaccine. Or I'm calling from your state health department. You have to pay. You have to wire me money immediately in order to receive the vaccine. So things like that are popping up. And so when I send a follow-up email to everyone who registered, I will include a fact sheet about that specifically, and just some links to support that process if you do get weird communication around the vaccine, because especially because you're having to register at all these different sites in order to even find out if it's your turn. That's all the more opportunity, I think, for scammers to leverage that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. Really, really appreciate it.
A lot of information. Let me know if I can help in any way.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.